Welcome to the Aligned Ambition podcast. I'm your host, Pooja Venkatraman. I'm a double Harvard grad, former BCG consultant, and now an executive coach for high achievers. On this podcast, we are going to tackle the 4 key things that you need to figure out in order to live a life of aligned ambition. Those 4 things are stress, productivity, performance, and purpose. We are going to make sure that you're driving your car in the direction that you actually want to go. That is the purpose part. We're also going to make sure that your progress along the road is consistent and effective. That's the productivity and performance part. And we're going to make sure that the fuel you're pouring into your tank isn't so noxious that it's filling your car with fumes and making the whole ride miserable. That is the stress part. Because if you can tackle those 4 things, stress, productivity, performance, and purpose, you can build the life and the career that you actually want. Not the life you think you're supposed to have, not the life that burns you out or doesn't fit quite right, but the life you actually want. One that fulfills your biggest ambitions and unleashes your fullest potential without sacrificing your sanity, your relationships, your authenticity, or your paycheck. A life that feels as good on the inside as it looks on the outside. That's what aligned ambition is all about. Let's get started. Hey guys, today we are kicking off a 5-part series that I'm calling 5 Key Career Mistakes That High Achievers Make. I am so excited to be talking to you about all of these different mistakes and pitfalls that I see clients falling into so that you can catch them ahead of time and solve them for yourself. We're going to be talking about this for the next 5 weeks because if you are a high achiever who has worked super hard and achieved so many of the things you wanted to achieve, you've gone to the amazing schools, you've worked at the amazing firms, you've gotten to where you actually want to be. You had a plan, you had a mission, and you've actually gotten there. But now you're sitting there at the mountaintop and feeling like something doesn't quite feel right. I don't know what it is, but something needs to change. And that feels crazy to me because I worked so hard to get here. So how can something feel wrong? What's going on here? What's going on here is not that you've made a whole bunch of mistakes and you're in the wrong spot. It also doesn't mean that you're ungrateful or something's wrong with you or any of those things. What's probably happening for you, if you're a high achiever who got a lot of the things that you wanted, but are still feeling like something's not quite right and something has to change in your career, what's probably going on under the surface is that you are making one or multiple of these 5 key career mistakes. So I'm so excited to share these mistakes with you so that you can have clarity on what is actually going on. Why does something not feel right? Why are you not happy even though you worked so hard to get here? These mistakes are going to help you understand why you're feeling this way, give you clarity, unshame them, just help you understand what the heck is actually going on. And they're going to help you know what to do about it based on which mistake you realize you're making. So let's jump into it. Mistake number 1 that high achievers make in their career is they're not clear on what they want their career to be, and they don't make that thing that they want it to be their North Star. Now, this seems really obvious, right? If you don't know what you want, you can't aim for it. And if you know what you want, but you don't make it your North Star, you compromise on it all over the place, then you're not going to get what you want. It's super simple and super obvious. And at the same time, you probably face so much noise and distraction and just stuff going on day to day, right? Like emails are coming in, Slack messages are coming in, there's meetings you have to prep for, there's the next big deadline of whatever is happening. There's probably stuff going on at home. You're like, we want to renovate the kitchen and the baby's like, the daycare like fell through. There's so much stuff going on all the time, right? That I bet if you asked yourself, am I clear right now on what I want out of my career? And am I operating with that thing as my North Star? Am I actually doing that? Chances are no, right? Chances are you know that something's not quite working, that something's not aligning with what you want. You know that something about this isn't quite right, but that you don't have that clarity of this is actually what I want, and I'm actually operating with that as my North Star, and I'm solving for it. So there's 3 reasons that high achievers tend to not be clear on what they want, and they tend not to operate with that as their North Star, right? I'm going to tell you what these reasons are, what these blockers are, and how to overcome them. Blocker number 1, really simple. I don't know. Your brain will tell you, I don't know what I want. I'm not clear on what I want. And this is going to hold you back because if you don't know what you want, if you're not clear on it, you can't aim for it. You can't get it. Very, very simple. But I want to say it makes a lot of sense that you would feel this way, right? Because you often probably haven't set time aside to really define what you want. What you want probably doesn't just like bubble up and make itself clear all by itself. You often have to sit down and create time, create space away from the noise to really think about and surface what you want. And then even if you do sit down and ask yourself that question, what do I want? Your brain might be like, I don't know. And it just might be silent. And then you'll be sitting there like, great, I guess I don't know what I want. Or your brain might give you like a jumble of things that you want, but it doesn't feel clear. It's confused. It's a muddle. It's sort of a collection of things, but you're like, I don't know what to do with this. This isn't like a clear North Star. This isn't a checklist. It's not something I can use in an actionable way. It's just kind of like some feelings and some thoughts. That's like vaguely kind of what I want, but I don't know what to do with that. By the way, I totally get this. This is very normal and very relatable. As to give you a personal example, I live in New York City right now. I'm contemplating moving out of New York City, maybe in a year or two, not anytime soon, but I'm thinking about it. It's kind of in the back of my mind. And so of course, when I tell people this, they're like, oh my gosh, where would you want to live? And my brain's like, I don't know. And they're like, well, are there any like characteristics? Like, do you want to go to another country? Do you want to go more like, more nature? Do you want to be near the water? Everyone's like, I don't know. Right? My brain freezes too, right? Unless I set aside time to actually pull it out of my brain. What do I want? Create the time and space, make my brain go beyond the I don't know and actually get talking and turn it from this like vague jumble of thoughts and feelings and fragments of things into like an actual actionable checklist. If I don't take the time to do that, my brain's just going to stay in the like, I don't know. I just am maybe thinking not this, but like, I don't know what I want, right? So what you have to do to get past the I don't know and to actually have clarity on what you want, you have to set time aside and you have to sit your butt down and get clear on what you want. Now, I think there's two types of people that are listening to me talk about this, right? There's one kind of person who heard me just say that and they're like, oh, got it. I didn't realize. All I need to do is sit down, create the time. I'm going to go ahead and do that. And if I create the time, I'm going to know exactly what questions to ask myself. I'm going to know exactly the process I need to run. And I feel really confident that after an hour or two of sitting with myself, I'm going to walk away with a super clear checklist, North Star of exactly what I want, right? That's one kind of person. There's a second kind of person who just listened to me say that. And they're like, I could set time aside and I could make a little appointment with myself. I'm not even 100% confident I would keep that appointment. I kind of think that like life might creep in and take over that time I set aside for myself. And even if I got myself to sit down and keep the appointment with myself, I'm actually not sure what I would do in that hour to walk away with clarity on what I want. So if you're that second kind of person who's like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. I should definitely sit down and get clear on what I want, but I'm not sure how to do that. I want you to come talk to me, right? Because here's what's going to happen when you book a call with me. First off, you're going to have the time set aside. You are way less likely to cancel on me, to cancel on another human being that you book time with than to cancel on yourself, right? I put the chances of your canceling on me at like less than 10%, and the chances of you canceling on yourself, if you're anything like me, probably around 90%. I will cancel on my own appointments with myself all the time. So if you book a call with me, you'll cross the hardest barrier, which is just having time and space set aside that you're not going to cancel on, that you're actually going to show up to, right? That's the hardest barrier. And then the other thing we're going to do is when we're actually talking together, I know exactly how to pull what you want out of you. Even if you're not sure what it is, even if you're thinking, maybe I don't even know, maybe there's no clarity in there whatsoever, I know the right kinds of questions to ask you to pull it out of you. I know what to do if you get stuck and you're just sitting there staring at me, blinking, being like, I have no idea what to say to her. So I know how to pull it out of you. And I also know how to see the patterns in what you're saying. So I'm going to be able to take that jumble, that mess, all of those fragments that come out of your mouth as I ask you those questions about what you want. I'm able to take that jumble, see the patterns, and actually turn it into something actionable. We'll be able to walk away with, here's your North Star, here's your checklist, here's the thing that summarizes this and can actually guide you in shaping your career going forward, right? So if you're hearing me say all that and you're like, oh yeah, actually, I'm not sure I'd be able to do that on myself. I'm not sure if I'd be able to keep the appointment with myself and then ask the right questions to actually pull it out of me and then do the pattern recognition to actually summarize that into something actionable that I can use going forward. If you're not sure that you'll be able to do all that by yourself, I want you to book your free call with me and let me help you because I help people do this all the time. And it's so valuable because once you've done this, once you've gotten past the I don't know, and you've actually pulled out of you what you do know, right, about what you want. I bet there's a lot you already know. Once you've pulled it out of you, seen the patterns, and made it into something actionable, what you are going to have is clarity. You're going to have clarity. You're going to have a path forward. You have something that can actually guide you. It's literally like a compass that can point you in the right direction. It's like a metal detector that you could use to scan different opportunities, different changes you can make, and it'll beep when you're going in the right direction, and it won't beep when you're going the wrong direction, right? Whatever different metaphors you use, what you have is you're going to have clarity and something actionable that you can use to actually guide whatever changes you want to make going forward. So that's blocker number one, I don't know, and how to overcome it. Blocker number two that high achievers face when it comes to getting clear on what they want is they get clear on what they want, but then they tell themselves, I shouldn't want this. It's self-indulgent, it's irresponsible, it's not right, it's off the beaten path. There's something about it which is wrong, right? It's like, I'm clear on what I want, but I shouldn't want this. And what's really happening here is that there's a should-want conflict of some kind that's come up for you once you've articulated what you actually want. Now, the reason this is going to hold you back in designing the career you actually want is if your target, if your want is actually infused with a bunch of shoulds and it's not your true want, you're not going to just like stumble on your wants accidentally, right? If you aim for something that has some shoulds, you're going to achieve something that has some shoulds because you're not actually aiming for the thing that you purely want. Right? But at the same time, it makes a lot of sense that you would feel this way because you've probably had a lot of success already following shoulds, following other people's external guidelines on what you should do, right? If you're a high achiever, you are someone who is good at getting A's on tests, good at climbing ladders that are put in front of you, good at jumping through hoops that are put in front of you. You're good at following authority, following rules, following scripts. And that is not even something bad about you. That's something that's actually really helped you get to where you are right now. It's a good trait about you. And at the same time, you're probably at the point where that desire and that ability to follow scripts and follow shoulds is not helping you anymore, right? This could be things like you're looking at the corporate ladder stretching out ahead of you, and you're like, the cost of climbing this ladder is getting kind of high. It's getting high in terms of stress. It's getting high in terms of time. I'm not sure if I want to climb this thing anymore. Or it might look like you feeling disillusioned, right? You being like, what am I really doing this for? What's the purpose? Because chances are by this point in your career, you've seen behind the curtain of some of these prestigious institutions and prestigious companies, and you might be feeling like, hey, there's like, I'm a little disillusioned, right? At the end of the day, everyone here is just trying to increase corporate profits by like another 0.1%, or everyone here is just trying to get more AI into the world and like, oh, like, I don't care, right? You might feel a little bit of disillusionment that makes you question these shoulds that you've been following. Or the other thing I see often with my clients is even if they don't feel like the cost of the climbing the ladder has gotten higher and they're not disillusioned, sometimes they just feel like my life has gotten bigger. It's gotten bigger than work and career and all the traditional realms of achievement. I have a family, I have hobbies, I just have a life outside of work, and I don't have the single-minded focus anymore of just work, 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 achieve, 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 right? And so that's also making me question some of these shoulds. So what's probably happened, right, is you've probably had a long time in your life where your internal wants aligned with the external shoulds. And now you're at a point where your internal wants are conflicting with the external shoulds. And that's why you're feeling that should-want conflict, right? If you've gotten clear, you've gotten past the I don't know, and you've actually articulated, this is what I want, and this is the actionable North Star that I would use to decide what I would do next, that's the next thing that's going to come up for people is like, oh, but I shouldn't want that, right? And what's happening there is your wants are conflicting with the external shoulds. So what you have to do in this situation is you have to build the skill of reconciling your wants and your shoulds and coming up with your integrated true wants. I'm not going to tell you, you should just blindly trust your wants, right? And just throw caution to the winds and be like, if I want it, then it's right. And I'm just going to go after it. You're welcome to do that if you want. I suspect that's probably not going to resonate with you. That's not the kind of person that usually ends up working with me. Instead, I want you to integrate your shoulds and your wants. I want you to actually go back and forth with yourself and reconcile them. Because when it comes to the should-want conflict, there's two layers of that conflict. There is the content of your should versus your wants, right? That's like the intellectual content. You can imagine if like two attorneys are battling it out in court, it's like the content of their logical arguments that you have to like, that have to be reconciled between each other. But then there's also the emotional part of like reconciling shoulds versus wants, right? And that's where it's, this is one of the reasons I'm really glad I'm not a trial attorney. Conflict like makes me emotional. I'm not a huge fan of conflict. I feel like if I had to like argue out a trial in court, I would just start crying because I would just be like, oh my gosh, emotions are really high and I can't handle this, right? And so there's the intellectual content, there's the actual like reconciling of like your should versus wants. Let's say your want is something like, I really want to, start a small business that like, that packages jam and like sells it at the farmer's market. And I want to do that, right? That might be the content of your want. And then the content of your should might be something like, oh, but like my parents worked so hard to, give me all these opportunities. And I feel like I'm throwing away those opportunities by pursuing this random business idea, right? Those are intellectual arguments that we can battle out in court. We can go back and forth on that. And at the same time, there's an emotional undercurrent to both of those things, right? On the want side of like, I want to start this jam business, there might be like hope and possibility and creativity and fun and this little like budding sapling of this idea that you're so excited about. And then on the should side, you might feel obligation and love, right? Love for your family, love for your parents, and like the kind of tension of like disappointing them and like, it might make you tear up or just might make you feel like an intense emotion, right? So what we have to do when we reconcile the shoulds and the wants, it's like the two attorneys in court. You have to actually go back and forth and figure out the argument. You have to actually get to the end and say, here's the final conclusion. You can't just like let the want talk and then the should talks and then that's it. The argument's never been reconciled. You have to actually finish going back and forth and reconcile it to the very end. And you also have to deal with the emotional component of it, right? To say, hey, what is it okay for me to go after what I truly want when my parents sacrificed so much for me? How do I reconcile with that emotionally? That's just an example. That might not be everybody's should and want conflict, but I wanted to give you an example of how you not only have to reconcile the intellectual side of the should and wants, but often it touches on deeper emotional chords, right? That might be kind of under, the undercurrent under these questions that you also have to resolve. Because if you don't resolve them, your brain is not going to be willing to just run full force against the wants because there's going to be real concerns holding you back. So that's what you really have to do. So again, like in order to actually execute on this, once again, you probably have to set aside time with yourself, which I know can be challenging. But it also takes a great deal of like emotional skill and emotional separation to be able to work through a should want conflict by yourself. I would actually recommend, if you haven't done this already, if you're not already seeing success in doing this, I would really recommend working with a coach to help you do this. This is why I work with my coaches. Like even when you have a high degree of skill in coaching, it is really hard to reconcile these things on your own because you have so much emotional skin in the game, right? They touch all these like deep emotional chords in you, and there's so many intellectual arguments flying back and forth. It can be super helpful to just have an objective third party help you do this, to sit you down, set the time aside and say, okay, we've gotten clear on what you want, right? We've cleared the first blocker. Now let's get all the shoulds out of your brain. Let's let the defense attorney give all 5 of their arguments. Let them give their like full opening statement of like reason 1, reason 2, reason 3, reason 4, reason 5. These are all the reasons. I'm not supposed to want what I want. Let's get them all out on paper. Let's not just keep them swirling in your head. Let's get them out on paper where we can actually respond to them. And then let's have that back and forth conversation. You can think of me as almost a facilitator of the conversation you need to have with yourself, right? To say like, hey, we're going to take these one at a time. We're only going to let one side talk at a time. And we're actually going to work through this and get to the bottom of it, get to the final answer in the back and forth of this, both intellectually and emotionally. Trust me, this is a little bit of like why people need couples counseling, right? When you're having a conflict, within a couple, it's sort of couples counseling, but just like with your own brain, right? Or between the want side and the should side of your brain, it moves way faster and is way easier when you have a neutral third party who can guide the conversation, like structure it, stop it from running into rabbit holes, and just stay emotionally neutral and help the conversation actually come to a conclusion. And once you've done this, right, once you've actually resolved the should want conflict and you have clarity and conviction in what you want, what you really get there is a return to authority. and a sense of like control and agency. It's very easy to think that if I just go with what I want, it's going to be self-indulgent, it's going to be weak, it's going to be permissive, it's going to be the career equivalent of just eating chocolate cake for breakfast every day. But what I actually find happens for my clients and for myself is when you go through this work of like reconciling, the attorney's arguments in court and actually working through your shoulds and your wants and coming through your integrated true want answer in the situation, what you really find is a sense of power and authority in yourself. It almost feels like as if you're, having an argument with the teacher, right? If the teacher's saying, you're not supposed to do that, this is what you actually need to do. And you're always used to just putting your head down and doing what the teacher says. And then one day you're actually like, no, I'm not doing this. Here's why. And we're going to have a back and forth and we're going to resolve this right now. And you get to a place where it's not just you and the teacher, but you guys are actually equals. And you're like, yeah, I'm holding my own here, right? I'm actually deciding what we're doing here. And I've gone from being the student, taking orders from the teacher to I've now become the chairman of the board, right? And there's all these voices in the room and I'm willing to hear what everyone has to say. But at the end of the day, I am the one captaining the ship and we're doing what I'm saying we're doing, right? It's that feeling of conviction and power and authority. That's what's waiting for you on the other side of actually working through those should want conflicts. Now, blocker number 3, to getting clear on what you want and making that your North Star in your career, right? You will get clarity. You can get clarity, get past the I don't know, and get clear on this is what I actually want. You can even reconcile your shoulds and your wants and return to that sense of power and authority of like, I'm captaining the ship, we're going in the direction I'm saying we're going. And then the last blocker people run into is, it's not possible. I'm clear, I have conviction, but it's not possible to get what I actually want. Now, this is going to hold you back in creating the career you actually want, because when your brain feels like the A+ option, the A+ of what you want is not possible, your brain will aim for the B+ instead, right? It'll be like, oh, if the A+ feels like it has a low chance of success, I'd rather aim for the B+, because the B+ feels like it has a higher chance of success. Now, what happens when you aim for the B+ is you will get, at best, the B+. You might get worse than the B+ because you've already kind of set this precedent or built this habit of compromising, about what's possible without a lot of pushback. But at best, if you aim for the B+, you will get the B+. You are not going to stumble on your A+ answer while you're aiming for the B+, right? And so when you tell yourself, what I want is not possible, so let me aim for a B+ version of what I want instead of an A+ version of what I want, that will hold you back from actually getting the A+ version of what you want. At the same time, I totally understand why you feel this way. It makes sense why your brain would tell you it's not possible, because as high achievers, aiming for anything that has less than like a 90 to 100% chance of success feels scary and it feels stupid, right? It feels scary because that possibility of failure, that possibility of looking stupid, of failing, of falling flat on your face, it feels really painful. Your brain might be like, what will that mean about me? It's going to mean I don't have it in me. Right? I'm fundamentally not good enough. I don't have that thing that other people have who succeed. I'm watching everyone else on LinkedIn post about their latest promotion and the latest, accomplishment that they've had. They're all speeding ahead of me. And in the meantime, I just tried to do this stupid thing and I totally flopped and I feel so embarrassed. Right? So aiming for something, and none of that has even happened yet, right? This is all preemptive fear that your brain has. We're aiming for something that has less than a 90 to 100% chance of success will make high achievers pre-feel all of those emotions of embarrassment and stupidity and failure and disappointment, right? And then the other thing I see that holds high achievers back in this arena when it comes when they're telling themselves it's not possible is they feel like, I don't want to waste my time. I don't want to waste my time. I don't want to waste my energy. I want to make sure that I get a high ROI from whatever effort I put forth. So I feel like the first thing around fear of failure and fear of embarrassment is more emotional. This one, people will get very logical as they tell me this. They won't make a very emotional argument. They'll be like, no, but I just have to be practical. I have to be practical. I have to be reasonable. I can't waste my time. Now, both of these, right, are actually not great reasons to not aim for what you actually want, right? The feeling of like, hey, if I don't have a 90 to 100% chance of success, I'm not going to aim for it because I'm pre-feeling all the emotion of, disappointment and failure and embarrassment. Not a good reason to not go after what you want, especially when your bar for success is really, really high, right? Your bar for the probability is really high. And same with the waste of time thing, right? There's a world of difference there's a world of shades of gray between things that have 90 to 100% chance of success and 0% chance of success. And there's a lot of points on that spectrum that are totally worth your time, that are worth taking the bet on, even if they don't have a 100% chance of success. So here's what you have to do when your brain tells you it's not possible. Once you've gotten clear and you've reconciled your wants and shoulds, but then your brain's like, but it's not possible to actually get what I want. There's 3 things you have to do. First, you have to toggle on your strategic thinking brain, not your fear brain. And you have to use your strategic thinking brain to actually calibrate your chances of success, right? Because chances are, if you really think objectively about it, you would be like, wait, I don't need my next step to have a 90 to 100% chance of success. That's too high of a bar for me to make a move, right? And usually when you actually look at the chance of success of the thing that you want, it's usually 50%, 60%, even 30%, which is still a really great, like high chance of success. But you need to use your strategic thinking brain, not your fear brain, to actually assess the possibility of success on like in terms of getting what you want, and then decide, is this an investment that's worth making? Is this a bet that's worth taking? And I want you to use your strategic thinking brain to do this, because your fear brain is going to be like, well, if it's not 100 or if it's not 90, then it's basically 0 and I don't want to do it. Whereas the reality is, I'm sure there's all kinds of times in your job when you make these kinds of risk assessments. You don't have to have 100% chance of success to make strategic recommendations in your job or to take bets in your job. You're totally capable of objectively assessing the chance of success and then making a bet, a reasoned bet about how much time or effort you would invest in something given that chance of success. You just need to do that over here as well, right? In response to your brain being like, it's not possible, you have to be like, hang on, brain. That's probably your fear brain. That's probably my fear brain talking and just saying if it's not 100, then it's 0. And there's a way more nuanced, way more calibrated analysis I can do of like the risk and the chance of success here. That's thing number 1. Thing number 2 you have to do when your brain says it's not possible is you have to start with your A+ of what you want and look for that first. Do a whole first round of searching and design and closing the gaps, whatever it is that you're doing to actually create the career you want first. Aim for the A+ and solve for the A+. Try to achieve that first. And only when you've completely exhausted the possibility of the A+ happening, then you can go to plan B and say, okay, these are the trade-offs I'm willing to make. And now I'm going to aim for my B+ answer, right? That mode of problem solving is actually way more efficient. It's way more likely to actually get you to the A+ answer because you're explicitly aiming for it, right? For a certain period of time. And it's actually less confusing for you. Right? It's easy to feel like, well, if the A+ doesn't feel super possible, if there's only a 50% chance of getting the A+, well, maybe I should like look for the B+ and the A+ at the same time, because then there's like a 90% chance of getting one of those 2 things. But in reality, when you look for everything in parallel, right, that's what you're doing. If you're like, let me look for the B+ and the A+ in parallel, in reality, that's actually more overwhelming. Now you have more possibilities that you have to deal with, more things that you have to try. If you're recruiting for jobs, that's now more jobs that you're having to interview for. Or if you're exploring different career paths or different strategies that you could apply, that's more career paths, more strategies that you now have to explore, versus when you keep it really clean and clear. And you're like, round 1 of trying to get what I want is only aiming for the A+, that actually makes your focus narrower in a good way. And so it makes, if you're recruiting for jobs, it's like, great, I'm only looking for A+ jobs. That's all I'm doing. My focus is very clean, very clear. And I'm going to look for that until the point where I've decided that now it's not possible and I'm going to expand to the B+. Or same thing if you are exploring strategies to grow your business, or if you're just exploring different career paths, explore all your A+ ones first. And don't downgrade to the B+ ones until you've thoroughly validated the A+ ones. Parallel problems, the in-series problem solving instead of the parallel problem solving is going to make your life way easier. It's way more efficient, and it's also more effective. And then the last thing you have to do to overcome the barrier of it's not possible to have the career I want, this is an emotional skill. You have to learn how to tolerate uncertainty, the possibility of failure, the possibility of disappointment, the possibility of looking stupid, the possibility of embarrassment. You actually just have to tolerate the possibility of those things. And they might also actually happen, and you'll have to tolerate them happening. But what I find is like 80% of the battle is actually holding the uncertainty. People really struggle with and have a lot of trouble, like actually just holding that, like it could happen. It could fail. I could be disappointed. I could be embarrassed. I would actually say 80 or 90% of the experience is just holding the possibility of a negative outcome. If the negative outcome actually happens, that is actually like a smaller part of the experience, right? You only like get rejected from a job once, right? Or you only have a strategy that you tried fail once. And then, you have a certain time period where you're experiencing the actual rejection or disappointment. That time period is actually much smaller. The more painful time period is where people are anticipating the negative emotion. They're anticipating, what if I get rejected? What if it fails? What if I'm embarrassed? What if I'm disappointed? That actually lasts way longer and is way more torturous, I would say, than the short time period where you actually experience the rejection or the failure or the disappointment. So that's actually some emotional capacity that you need to build, right? You need to build the tolerance for that what if from your brain. What if I fail? What if I get disappointed? What if I get embarrassed, right? You have to build your capacity to hold those and to redirect your brain to say, well, hang on, I've already done this, like the strategic thinking analysis of why it is worth it to like still make this bet. And now I'm going to redirect my brain to say, okay, but what if it goes well? Right? What are the reasons it's going to go well? What if I actually succeed? What if I do a great job at this? So you have to build your emotional capacity to hold those uncomfortable what ifs and then redirect your brain to a more productive place so you can actually do better work. This is also something that I help my clients do. This is also something that can be really challenging to do on your own, right? To toggle your fear brain out of your fear brain and into your strategic thinking brain that you use at work all the time. When you're not emotionally entangled in the result, you're really good at using your strategic thinking brain. But to toggle it when it's your baby, when it's your career, to still access your strategic thinking brain and stay objective in your analysis can be really challenging to do by yourself. It's also really helpful to have a thought partner to help you stay disciplined in terms of actually aiming for the A plus and having a little bit of structure around what does the A plus look like? What does aiming for the A plus look like? And how long am I going to give myself in terms of a certain amount of time or a certain number of attempts? How long am I going to give myself before I've decided the A plus is not possible? This is the data that I've gathered in terms of why, and now I'm going to downgrade to the B plus. It is really helpful to have some outside structure and thought partnership to help you set that up, because otherwise what happens is people run into like 2 failures or like 2 obstacles when they're trying to build their A plus, and they're like, never mind, it's not possible. I'm going to downgrade to the B plus. So you're going to want some like external structure and accountability around that. And then this third thing around building the emotional skill of like holding the what if, holding the uncertainty, holding the like preemptive disappointment, preemptive embarrassment. That's another thing where I think it can be so helpful to work with an expert to help you learn how to build that emotional capacity to tolerate discomfort, and then the mental capacity to redirect your brain into a more productive place. That is something I never figured out on my own. That is something I always needed other people to like help me learn how to do. It's not an intuitive skill. If you let your brain just run on intuition, it's not going to tend to learn how to tolerate uncomfortable feelings and redirect itself. It's going to want to just like stay in the uncomfortable feelings and build on them and build on them and build on them until your fear limits you, because your brain is just trying to keep you safe. So these are all things, again, you can try to DIY them, but I don't recommend DIYing them and trying to do it yourself unless you're already doing it, right? Unless you're hearing me say everything that I've said and you're like, oh, I've already done a lot of those things. I'm noticing that I'm already successfully doing them on my own. Great, right? I want to lay out the steps for you so that it's clear for you to assess, am I already doing those or am I not? But if I'm laying these steps out and you're like, ooh, I'm not doing those things, and I can anticipate that it'll be difficult for me to set aside the time and have the emotional objectivity and get into creative problem solving mode and actually execute on the things that Pooja is talking about, then it's a great chance to come talk to me and get some thought partnerships and support in doing this. Because once you have done this, right, once you have tackled your brain saying it's not possible and gone into strategic creative problem solving mode to actually figure out how to make it possible, what's going to happen is you are going to have fun. Because the reality is you like solving problems. You like puzzles. You like a challenge. It is fun to do this. My guess is you solve problems all day at work and you enjoy it. There's something in you that genuinely enjoys getting a puzzle, getting a challenge, and then figuring out how to connect the dots and connect the puzzle pieces to make something happen that people didn't think was possible to happen, right? You enjoy this problem solving process. It just is when your brain tips over into fear and avoiding disappointment and avoiding failure because it's your career and it's your baby, that's when it stops being fun. But when you can tap back into your strategic problem solving mode and you can sequence the problem solving so that you're aiming for your A plus first and you're putting all your creativity there, and you can build the emotional capacity to tolerate uncertainty and tolerate the possibility of disappointment, when you can do those things, you go back to having fun in this process. And then you're not rushing to be done with this. You're not rushing to just get to a conclusion and be done so you can be on autopilot and cruise. You're going to have that flow that you feel when you're like solving fun puzzles and you're like, that was so fun. Where's the next one? Where's the next one? I'm just having a great time doing this. It's fun to like do the problem solving every day. It's fun to create the career I want. It's fun to like surf the wave and figure this out. I'm enjoying doing this. That's the feeling you get on the other side. So by the time you've done these three things, right? By the time you overcome the I don't know, what you get is clarity and a compass and something that can actually guide your moves going forward. When you overcome the like should versus want conflict, right? The I shouldn't want this. What you walk away with is conviction and power and authority, and that feeling of like, you're not the teacher telling me what to do. I'm the chairman of the board. I'm telling you what we're doing. And when you work through the it's not possible blocker, what you get back is the fun and the confidence and the problem solving like challenge of doing this work, because I know you love a problem. I know you love a challenge. I know that this is actually really fun for you when it's set up the right way. So that is the first career mistake that I see high achievers make, which is not getting clear on what they want and not making it their North Star. It is so simple, but it is so crucial, because if you're not clear on what you want, and if you're not actually aiming for what you want, all the work you do is moot, right? It's that thing of like, if you don't set the direction that you're aiming in correctly, it doesn't matter how hard you work or how fast you go or how quickly you get there. You're working to get to a destination you don't actually want, right? So this is the most crucial first step, is getting clear on what you want, getting past the I don't know, getting past the I shouldn't want this, getting past the I don't know if it's possible, but actually getting that clarity, that conviction, and that authority, and that fun and that challenge problem solving. The fun of challenge is the fun of problem solving as you're aiming for what you actually want. And like I told you about, like the three blockers that are preventing you, it's the I don't know what I want, I shouldn't want what I want, and it's not possible to have what I want. And by the way, I'm going to just recap like what it takes to overcome these things, right? To overcome the I don't know what I want, you've got to set time aside. You've got to ask yourself the right questions to pull what you want out of yourself. You have to see the patterns and the themes in what you want. You have to turn it from a bunch of fragments and like, a bunch of like convoluted things into something actionable and clear, a checklist, a North Star, a compass that you can use to actually guide you. To overcome the I shouldn't want what I want, you have to do the emotional and intellectual work of reconciling your shoulds and your wants and coming to the integrated true wants that you actually have. And then to overcome the it's not possible to have what I want, you've got to turn on your strategic problem solving brain. You've got to actually assess the chance of success and whether this is a bet that's worth taking. And if it is, you have to get out there and you have to solve for your A+ answer first. You have to look for it. You have to try to create it first with full thoroughness before you downgrade to the B+, and you have to emotionally tolerate uncertainty and the possibility of failure and the possibility of disappointment as you go after something that's not 100% guaranteed. And I wanted to lay out all of the things that you have to do, because if that sounds like a lot to do by yourself while you're also working your full-time job and also taking care of all your responsibilities at home, I will tell you, it is a lot. Like, I want to be honest with you about what it takes to create the career that you actually want, right? This is not something that happens quickly between meetings, while you're answering the emails, in 5 minutes while you're grabbing your coffee. This is something that's hard to do by yourself at the end of a long day or on the weekend when you're tired and you want some rest. This is real thinking and problem solving work. And by the way, it's real emotional work as well, right? There's problem solving on the intellectual and mental level. There's also problem solving on the emotional level in terms of the bigger picture existential questions that this will tend to bring up for people. So if you know that something needs to change in your career, but you're feeling stuck in what exactly that change should be and how to figure it out, and you're feeling the I don't know, and you're feeling the like I shouldn't want this, and you're feeling that it's not possible, what you really need is some structure and thought partnership to do this work and build the career you actually want. You need time set aside every week, right? Or every other week. We'll figure out the structure that works best for us, but you need time, dedicated time and space set aside to actually tackle this problem. This is not something that like just occurs to you while you're playing games on your phone or while you're waiting for your coffee to brew, right? You need actual dedicated problem solving time set aside. You also need structure to the problem solving to break it down into one thing at a time and give you a problem solving map. That's a little bit of what this podcast episode already was, right? My guess is like you probably started with, I'm not clear on what I want and I don't know how to make it my North Star. And I already gave you a little bit of a problem solving map, right? Of like, here's the three blockers that are probably happening. It's the I don't know, it's the I shouldn't want it, and it's the it's not possible. And here's how you work through these things. That kind of like breaking down an ambiguous problem, putting structure around it and sequencing it and saying, here's the order in which we're going to work through things to get to an answer is so freaking valuable. And it's usually only going to come from an outside third party. It's really hard to do that by yourself. You also need someone who can ask you the right questions, who can pull it out of you, who can see through the noise to the signal, who can see the patterns, and who can help you actually build the answer. That is going to accelerate your problem solving so much. And you also need someone who's not emotionally entangled in the situation, who has no skin in the game whatsoever. They can stay super objective. They're not going to have big emotional highs and lows as they're analyzing the problem. And because I'm going to be really objective, I can help you get really objective as well and tap into that strategic problem solving brain that you have and get away from your fear brain. And you also need someone who has lots of pattern recognition around all of this, right? People, if it's you in your career, you probably make big transitions or big changes in your career like a handful of times, right? Across the full, call it like 30 to 40 years of your career, you're probably gonna make a handful of big transitions. I do big transitions all day, big transitions, smaller transitions. All I do is work with people who are like, something has to change in my career. You need to help me figure out what it is and how to action on it, right? So my pattern recognition is just much higher because I spend all day doing this the same way you spend all day doing something else, right? You have really high pattern recognition on the content of your job. I have really high pattern recognition on exactly this topic. And so I'm going to be able to spot patterns, give you suggestions for what to do, help you brainstorm solutions way faster than you might be able to do on your own because I literally just see this stuff all day long. So what I want you to do is come and talk to me. Book your free career audit. The link is in the episode description. This is why it can be so helpful to have that external structure, that thought partnership, that expertise, that pattern recognition, someone who's an objective third party helping you think through all this. And even if you don't end up working with me, the free career audit just by itself is such a gift to you. Because how often do you step back and really look at your career, right? Not just be immersed in it, but really step back and like, it's like, it's the time you spend like driving your car versus like taking the time to like step out of your car and like look at it and pop the hood and be like, what the heck is going on in there, right? My guess is you don't have a lot of opportunities to just step out of the car, pop the hood, look at the whole thing and be like, what's going on? What do I really think? What is the big picture of what's happening here, right? The free career audit is your time to actually step back and look at the big picture of your career, define what it is that you want, identify the gaps between what you have and what you want, make a plan to close those gaps. I'm going to help you with that part. Don't worry. And then I'm also going to give you an objective assessment of whether us working together would help you execute your plan to close your gaps more effectively and whether it would accelerate your path to you having the career that you actually want. So even if you don't end up working with me, just having that opportunity to take an hour, step back, assess your career at a bigger picture level and really get clear on this is what I want. These are the gaps. This is the plan to close the gaps. And this is how I'm going to execute that plan. That is a gift, whether you work with me or not. So I want you to come talk to me, book your free career audit, and I can't wait to chat with you and help you get super clear on what you want and help you actually make it the North Star and then make the plan for now that you have your North Star, how are you going to execute on it and actually build the career you want? All right, I'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Aligned Ambition podcast. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already and share this podcast with anyone you know that you think could use it. If you'd like to explore working together in a one-on-one coaching engagement with me, book a free consult call at poojavcoaching.com/contact. You can grab that link in the episode description. And if you have any questions, thoughts, or topics you want me to cover in this podcast, shoot me an email at pooja@poojavcoaching.com. You can grab that in the episode description too. Talk to you soon.